Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and how you arrived here in New Zealand.
How I arrived here. It's quite a cool story. I was born in England. I was born on the Isle of Wight, and I grew up there until I was almost 14. So I spent most of my life over there. We moved to New Zealand. We actually moved to Auckland, kind of Auckland, Whangaparaoa, up on the coast. So part of the super city, but doesn't really count, does it? We moved up there, and that's where I went to high school. I had the best childhood up in Whangaparaoa. It felt like being on holiday all the time, and we got dogs, and I just got to spend more time with my little brother because when we first moved here, we didn't have any friends. And so then I moved to Wellington for university, and believe it or not, about 3 or 4 months later, my family followed me down. So, you can't get away from them.
You started a movement. So tell us about your Irish connections.
Well, my mum is Irish. My mum grew up in Cork. My granddad was born in Donegal, which is where I summered every year from when I was 10 weeks old, all the way through until kind of now. And my granny was born in Trim, County Meath.
There you go.
I know. But, I spent so much time in Ireland growing up. Donegal is my favourite place on earth. I know, yeah. We used to go to, it's a tiny little island called Critch, and my Auntie May, my granddad's mum, she had a tiny little chalet, and every summer, me and my cousins and my uncles and aunties and my grandparents, we would all pile into this tiny, tiny little chalet in the middle of nowhere with no TV, no radio. It would just be us and the fireplace and the board games. And we would swim in the freezing cold Donegal water and just, enjoy each other's company. And we would do it for weeks. And it was the highlight of every year of my life. So as I've kind of become an adult and, I travel off my own back now, I make sure that I go back home every year to see my grandparents, to see my aunts and uncles. So I'm counting down the days, actually. I'm back in about a month. So.
Very good, very good. Now, are you still a student?
I'm not. No, I'm not. I know I've graduated.
You graduated, but you're a marketing tutor, is that correct?
Yes. So
what does that involve?
It's funny. It's something that kind of fell into my lap. I'm an actor. So I'm an actor in Wellington. That's what I love. But after I almost was about to graduate, I kind of thought, I don't really want to leave uni yet and be a real adult. So I stuck around as a tutor. I did some theatre tutoring. I wrote a musical that they put on for the third year production, and then I did some marketing tutoring. So it was just a nice opportunity to spend some more time around students, stay around campus, and they've just been really good to me. So that's what pays the bills most of the time. That's what lets me travel. So acting can be a little bit up and down, busy and not so busy, and so that kind of tides me over.
So you're a working actor or waiting to be discovered, or both?
You know what, I think it's always going to be a little bit of both until I kind of catch that break.
So tell us about some of the roles that you have played.
Oh, wow. So in the beginning, I started off mostly on stage, doing a lot of musicals, a lot of plays, and I think that has taught me the most about acting, because the art and the artist and the audience is all in one room, and you really connect with the people around you. You have to rely on them to catch you if you muck up a little bit, and you have to connect with the audience so that they understand the story. So I played Sylvia in All Shook Up. So it's an Elvis Presley musical. So how much better can you get? And I've played Babs in The Reunion, and I've played Queen Elizabeth. Had a couple of good roles. But in more kind of recent years, I've moved more onto screen, which I love. I find that you can do more work, because rather than rehearsing a show for months and then touring it for months, you kind of work super, super quickly, and you shoot things and then you go on and you shoot something else, and it can be really subtle, and I kind of feel like it's a little bit more nuanced. So can't tell you any of my roles yet, because it's not quite hit the screen, but when it comes out, I'll be sure to tell you on Facebook.
If you could choose a role, any role, what would you choose?
Oh, what a question. You know what, I've thought a lot about who I would like to be in films with, people like Emma Watson and Bradley Cooper. But honestly, I think if I could play a role, especially in recent times, I would love to play our Prime Minister. I would love to play Jacinda. I think that she's become such a beautiful icon of what New Zealand stands for, what modern women stand for. I would love if they made, a biopic about Jacinda. Sign me up.
Really good. Very good. Now, last night at the Irish Club did something quite interesting, which is ask somebody to pick a straw out of a jar. It's called U-Jar. Tell us a wee bit more about that, because that's one of your hobbies, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I guess it's kind of a long story, but I'll cut it short. Having struggled with my own mental health in the past and supported my friends struggling, themselves, it came to my attention that I'd been really, really lucky, that when I had been struggling, I'd had the support system around me, and the university network, all of the healthcare there, they're there to support you and to pick you up. My family is so tight-knit. So I had all of the support that I was able to manage my own mental health, take care of myself, grow from it. But then a friend of mine came upon some really hard times, and I just really wanted to help, but no one would take him. We went to the emergency room, we called up doctors' offices all over the Greater Wellington region, and they weren't, they didn't have the capacity, they weren't taking new patients. And it just struck me that not everyone has that same support network. Not everyone has a safety net. And I kind of felt a little bit helpless because, I didn't realize it would be that hard to get help. And there wasn't anything that I could do. And then I thought, well, instead of just sitting here moping about it, maybe I could make something that could help people, that could create a safety net. So I started making these jars. I took a summer off and went to the warehouse, stockpiled some jars, stockpiled some popsicle sticks, and I started colour coding them with things that make me feel good, things that the New Zealand Mental Health Foundation say make other people feel good. And so I've made these little jars with little colour codes, and you can say 3 things to do outdoors, and it'll tell you to go visit the SPCA and sit in the quiet cat room or play with the puppies, or 3 things to do indoors, and it'll tell you to read for 10 minutes, or call up a friend you haven't spoken to in a while, or write a letter to your future self. So last night I had Katie pick a straw or a stick with a song for me to perform. So I had a whole bunch of songs that I'd written on there, and I let her pick which one I would perform last night. So I hope that made people happy.
I think it did. Changing gears, Irish mammies and grannies have these legendary superpowers, okay? One word, one look. What do you think gives them so much influence in Irish families, etc.?
I think the Irish mum is, sorry Grandad, the Irish mum is the head of the house, right? My granny runs that house and she knows everything that's going on. My granddad, he's awesome. I actually call him G-Dog. It started as a joke, pretending that he was hip, and then it just kind of caught on. So we call it out like, hey G-Dog. And so he's awesome, he's amazing, but my granny runs that house, and I think one of the things is just that Irish women are not, I guess modern Irish women are not brought up to be subservient, they're brought up to be quite powerful, and we've got myths about warriors and actual female warriors, which is really cool. And all my mum and my granny had to do when I was growing up is say, "No be donna," and I'd be like, "Oh, don't be bold, okay, sorry."
So let's switch to the other side now. It is said that, it's often repeated that Maori and the Irish are quite similar. I've heard that quite often. Do you agree with that? Yes or no? And if so, why not? So do you agree that they're quite similar?
I do. I only moved to New Zealand when I was almost 14, and I've done everything that I can to learn about Maori culture just because it's so essential to understanding New Zealand. And one thing that I really love is the Maori language. They have words and phrases that we don't have direct translations for in English. You know, they have words that, to properly explain, we would need to talk for 2 minutes, you know? And I feel that way about Ireland sometimes, and the stories that they tell, and the mythic figures and like historical people. All you'd have to do is say their name, and this whole story, all of this symbolism and meaning comes with it. So I think there's a real kind of reliance on storytelling in both cultures. I mean, if you try and trace back kind of Maori culture as far back as you can, it becomes really difficult because it's a verbal culture. You know, they didn't do a lot of writing things down, they passed things down through stories. And I mean, definitely in my experience, that's what it's like in Ireland. You tell stories and they have meanings and they run through generations. And then, of course, there's also this reliance on community and family. And all you'd have to do is look around tonight, like, you know, we're 6 girls from all around New Zealand, and we've got this whole room of wonderful people who are not only supporting, you know, the one that they know, but all the others. And we know that in Māori culture it's the same. You have a community, you have a group of people that support one another regardless. You have aunties who aren't related to you, but they're your auntie all the same, and so they marry really well.
Very good. Very good. Simple question now. If you could pack one thing in your bag going to Ireland that would represent New Zealand, one thing, what would you pack?
One thing. So I actually have thought about this because they asked us this earlier today, and I just gave the answer. And the more that I think about it, the more that I would stick by that answer. I would bring a greenstone. I would bring a punamu. Being gifted something like that has so much meaning attached to it. It talks so strongly about your character, about the kind of person that you've grown into be, about your kind of inner strength. And I feel like, I mean, it helps that it's green. I feel like it would really help kind of connect the two cultures, and it represents everything that New Zealand does so beautifully. So that's what I bring over. Yeah.
Very good. Okay. Second and last question. World Cup. Who do you want to win?
My dad spent a lot of time growing up in South Africa, so he kind of quite often will support South Africa. And then sorry, Dad. and then my mum is like the kind of intermediary, trying to keep the peace and like float around and support everyone. But I think she'd say Ireland too. So I'm going to go with the majority and say Ireland.
Very good. Well, Ailise, if you were to be selected here tonight to represent us integrally, what would that mean for you?
It's a really nice question because I've wanted to be the Rose of Tralee since I was so small. We used to watch every year without fail, and we would always be cheering for the Cork Rose because that's where we'd be watching it. And she never really won, but we were cheering all the same. And I just it would mean so much to me now and to little me, because I feel like in films and TV they often depict women as being in competition with each other and it being catty. And the one thing that I loved about watching The Rose of Tralee was that that's not what it was about. It was about sisterhood and the power that comes with being a woman in the modern day. And they always just seemed so genuinely happy for each other. And that's exactly what I've experienced this past weekend with the girls. Like, I've never met a group of women that I've just so quickly gotten along with, and that's what The Rose of Tralee is about, right? It's about celebrating sisterhood and what it means to be an Irish woman and what it means to be a representative of your country. So I would just be incredibly proud and incredibly stoked for baby me.
Very good. Ladies and gentlemen, Ailise Bates.